All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to our monthly town hall meeting and professionals issues update. So glad to see so many of you here with us today. We got about 500 folks or so on the call today, which is great for the middle of summer and a Friday morning to boot. So welcome, happy Friday. Glad you're here. Glad to be here. I am Bill Sheridan. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the Maryland Association of CPAs. If you were tuning in expecting to see our CEO, Jackie Brown, or our Director of Development, Rebecca Brown, the usual folks you'd see at one of these things, well, they're both on vacation this week. We all need a break, right? And this is theirs. And they're kicking back at the ocean, as I understand it. And I'm hoping they're having a great time and not even thinking about what we're doing here today. So anyway, you're stuck with me today. I hope to do Jackie and Rebecca proud. We're about to find out, aren't we? So let's get to it, shall we? Today, what are we doing today? We're gonna spend most of the day, most of the next hour actually looking at firm issues, right? Things that are top of mind for those of you who are working on the public practice side. And really, you know, I'd argue that these aren't just firm issues, right? I mean, these issues are probably impacting your clients in a way as well. So in a way, I think firm issues are issues for all of us in this profession. So now with that said, we haven't forgotten about a couple of other important issues, right? We've got a couple of important programs coming up that you should know about. Number one, we've got a pass-through entities update, a 2-hour update on August 4th. It's going to be led by Karen Cirillo and Jim Wilhelm from the MACPA State Tax Committee. We've also got a 1-hour update on PPP loan forgiveness and interplay with the employee retention credit. That's coming up next week, I believe, July 28th. We will include links and registration information for those events later today in our follow-up email from this session, so be sure to look for that. But for today, we've got a pretty stellar lineup of experts to walk us through some firm issues. Joining us today are Lexi Kessler. Lexi is a partner in charge of the Government Contract Services Group at Aronson. She is also the newly elected chair of the MACPA's Board of Directors and chair of the Private Companies Practice section of the AICPA. So welcome, Lexi. We also have Lisa Simpson. Lisa is Vice President of Firm Services for the AICPA. She leads the PCPS team and is liaison for the PCPS Executive Committee. Lisa, welcome. And we also have Carl Peterson. Carl is Vice President of Small Firms for the Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. He serves as the small firm advocate and representative for the profession. Once again, Lexi, Lisa, Carl, thank you all so much for being here today. We'll get to our guests here momentarily. We want to get some insight from all of you as well today. And by now, most of you attending this meeting should know the drill. Conferences.io is where we're going to be asking you a few polling questions throughout the morning. I've actually opened up all those polls right now, so you can get in there and answer them at your leisure. We'll keep those open throughout the hour. A couple things that I really am hoping that you all will give us your insights on. Number one, we always like to start out these meetings with what we call good news, right? Just kind of getting ourselves in the right mindset. And kicking things off on the right foot. So, you know, that first question there, just tell us one thing or two things that's good in your life, in your world, professionally, personally, whatever the case may be. Be sure to do that. And then I'd also like you to make sure to answer that last question, looking for your ideas about what are the biggest trends that are having the biggest impact on you. What are the things that you'd like to learn more about? Not only because we're just interested, but we're going to use the results of that question to kind of inform how we build our agenda for our CPA Summit, which is coming up in October. So those answers are going to be important to us. So thank you for that. I'm just going to open up these good news questions. Let's see what's going on here. Blessed by God beyond measure. Grandchildren, health, friends, family, love that. My wife, summer weather, very nice. No masks for the time being anyway. That's refreshing. So a lot of really great responses. When you get a chance, just kind of scroll through those. It's one of my favorite parts of these meetings is just seeing what's good in everybody's life and kicking things off on the right foot. So thank you all for your responses. Again, conferences.io, it's macpa.cnf.io is the address, or you can use that QR code there to access those questions as well. All right, let's move on. Here's something else. You've probably seen this once or twice before. This is our ecosystem of preferred providers. Partners, really, with the MACPA. Partners that this profession, these are the partners that want this profession to be successful too, right? We don't look at them as just sponsors. These really are partnerships. And these folks have some great resources and solutions that can help you thrive and grow in this kind of changing and complex world. And I think the key here, they all want to help. They really, really do. They want to help you and your clients be all that you can be, and that's why they're here. And we would love for you to get to know them a little bit better. You can find out more information about all of our preferred providers on our website, macpa.org. And especially today, we want to introduce you to some of the folks at Bockkeeper who are helping to make today's update possible. We thank them so much for their partnership and their future-focused leadership in our profession. I'd like to introduce you to Deneen Dias. She is Vice President of Strategic Alliances at Bockkeeper, and she is going to share briefly some of the things that Bockkeeper is doing on your behalf. So Deneen, take it away.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to share with everybody this morning all the neat things that Bockkeeper is doing for firms. What is Bockkeeper? We are a human-assisted artificial intelligence platform that is purpose-built for accounting firms. So that's the biggest shift that's happened this year is we're 100% firm focusing. We want to be the firm engine with our tech and team. So we have a platform that firms can use and onboard their clients that allows you to use our tech and talent. We have about 200 bookkeepers in the Philippines that have been trained to work with machines. Research shows that bookkeepers have about 80% accuracy in closing books, and machines have about 80% accurate in closing books. When you marry a machine with a human that knows how to code transactions, that's when you get the 99% accuracy. So if you go to the next slide, please. Thank you for the introduction again. It's Deneen Dias. I'm Vice President. I have a new title of Strategic Partnerships. I joined Bockkeeper about almost a year now because I believe that AI is the future for firms. So if you can go to the next slide. And the problem that we solve is actually Lisa, Carl, Lexi and I were just talking, is this demand for talent. The war for talent. Firms of all sizes, small, medium, and large, are having a tough time keeping talent, hiring talent, retaining talent, and quite frankly, bookkeepers are burnt out. And we know there's more businesses than bookkeepers. And we're seeing, I've been talking with firms the last couple of months, about 80% tell me that they're turning new business away for bookkeeping. So we know it's not a demand issue. It's really a supply issue for firms. So if you can go to the next slide. And the number one common challenge that we're seeing is bookkeeping. It's the biggest bottleneck for firms to be able to scale and grow. Imagine if you could say yes to all those businesses that want you to help with bookkeeping. Imagine how you can then transition them over to advisory or then sell them tax services. But the issue is that firms are at capacity. You still have problems with accuracy and timeliness of closing the books. Firms have great talent, but you have the right people doing the wrong work. I hear all the time that senior accountants are helping with coding transactions. And we know, again, it's hard to hire and retain that talent. So if you go to the next slide, please. And so this is what I think it's really good for firms to understand about Bockkeeper. We have a platform that has a workflow tool, and we're thinking through the challenges that firms have in building a bookkeeping or CAS practice. So we have a task manager tool. We have a communication tool so that you can communicate with your clients. We have a way to get all the documents in. We interface with banks, so we're able to get the bank statements. None of that is where our AI is. Where our AI and machines are, and by the way, we've been doing this for 6 years, so our machines have learned a lot over the last 6 years on how to code transactions, is on the left-hand side of this chart. And that's the time, that's consuming time that takes talent to do all that pre-accounting work that quite frankly isn't really profitable. It's just very time consuming. So that's the easy stuff that we actually free up, allowing your talent to do everything on the right-hand side, which is the month-end close or any add-ons that clients need, like RevRec or job costing. And then of course, moving into that advisory role. So the reason so many firms are partnering with us is, the number one reason is they want to free up their team, give them a chance to breathe, but then allow them to think about how they can do more advisory work with the clients, which is where the real value is. So if you go to the next slide, please. I think that might be the last one.
I think that is the last slide.
All right. Well, so you can reach me at Deneen@bockkeeper.com if you have any questions. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity this morning to share the Bockkeeper story.
Deneen, thank you so much for your partnership and for being here this morning. We appreciate all you're doing for us. So thanks once again for your time and for being here. Just a reminder about what we do at the MACPA, why we're here, to connect and protect and help each one of you achieve great things in your career, in your organization, and the profession. We want to make that positive impact with you and for you, and this is why we do what we do, and why we're proud to do what we do. This is the team, just part of the team that is doing all of that. These are the members of our leadership team. Again, you all know Jackie Brown, our CEO, Skip Flacco, our CFO, of course, myself, and Laura Swan is our controller. Dee Sullivan is with us today, kind of running things on the back end for us today. Rebecca Brown, our director of development. Greg Rittler from Blue Ocean Ideas runs our tech and marketing. And then Mary Beth Halpern, our director of technical and regulatory affairs, who is also, I believe, on the call today. She'll be monitoring questions that pop up in Conferences.io and answering some of the questions that you might have. So that's the team working on your behalf. We'd also like to thank our 100% member organizations, the folks who are joining this growing list of organizations and the firms that have made the commitment to support each of their professionals being part of the MACPA too. If you don't see your company's name on this list, you might want to, we might want to add you, encourage you to reach out to anyone on our team at the MACPA. We'd be more than happy to help you make that happen. And you can reach out to Rebecca Brown at the MACPA. Also, a big thank you to the firms and organizations who have designated a champion to be that MACPA liaison to their team. So each professional gets the most benefit from being connected to the MACPA and the profession here in Maryland. If you want to be part of that list, and it's a growing list too, reach out again to Rebecca Brown, and she can help you make that happen. Finally, just a reminder, this is our promise to you as members of the MACPA. As you all are reimagining your organizations in this challenging time, we're doing the same thing at the MACPA. Lexi calls this MACPA 3.0, right? And we're doing all of this to make sure that we're providing the community like this with the resources and professional development and advocacy that you need to thrive in the work that you do for your clients and your teams and organizations. So this member promise, it's really our commitment, right? It's centered on our purpose, our core values, our core focus. We believe All those things will help us help you do great work going forward. So just a reminder about why we're here for you. Now, enough of that. Let's get on to why we're really here today, talking a little bit about firm issues, right? This is going to be a conversation among our three guests today. What are the issues that are top of minds for firm today? What impact are these issues having? How are they kind of driving the evolution of public accounting? What does the future look like for firms? All of that is fair game. And so I'm just going to kind of draw a name out of the hat here. Lisa Simpson. Thank you again, Lisa, for being here. And let's just get this conversation started, shall we? And I think, this slide kind of points out a number of really important issues. And one certainly that is top of mind for everybody nowadays is talent, and that finding talented folks to help drive our firms forward. What are you seeing or hearing from members in regard to talent these days?
Thanks, Bill, and I'm so happy to be back with the Maryland Association. So thanks for the invite and to be part of the conversation with Lexi and Carl. You're right. Everybody is talking about talent, and I have heard the war for talent more in the past 2 weeks than I have heard in the past 2 years. So it's heating up. It is getting tough out there for firms to find people that are going to stay. Recruiting and retention are both challenges. So we're hearing that firms are having to look to keep that hybrid or this remote workforce engaged. So they're not currently rushing to get everybody back into the office because talent is still trying to figure out how they're going to navigate the next few months and what's going on in their lives. So it's all about talent, recruiting, and retention right now.
And I think also sorry, Carl, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Here we go. I think with the pandemic, there's been a drop in geographic boundaries as well that has exacerbated this. I think that when you've got individuals that have worked in places that aren't necessarily near a metropolitan area, and now the compensation that they're getting is more appealing and they can work remote. And that really affects, I think, really impacts smaller firms that I'll let you tuck right into that, Carl, then. So
I appreciate that because that fits right in. The smaller firms are, I think, more impacted by the risk of losing talent to larger firms, especially outside of their geographic area. And a small firm, they're all concerned about the pipeline. They have so much work to be done, and now their staff is being approached by headhunters, by brokers, by firms all around the country in this new environment, being able to work remotely. I don't know if I'd say panic has set in, but there's a lot of concern about that whole pipeline. You lose somebody in a small firm, you've lost a big percentage of your staff to be able to get work done.
I'm hearing a phrase being repeated over and over quite frequently these days, this idea of what they're calling the Great Resignation. This idea that people are feeling empowered to not stay, to look, to get out there and kind of test the waters. Are you hearing any evidence to kind of support that this is actually a thing that firm leaders need to be conscious of and monitoring, this idea that folks might be ready to leave at the drop of a hat?
If I could make it, I can give you an example, right? So I live and work out of the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and there is a G400 size firm that 3 or 4 weeks ago, one of their up and coming rock stars, just about almost 30 years old, not quite 30 years old, gave notice and just said, I'm not going to be doing 80-hour weeks anymore. And they are feeling empowered. And there's empowerment and there's also pressure, right? The work-life balance, the family, everything that they learned over the last year and a half, but they feel empowered to take off and do their own thing because they believe it can work.
I also think that the pandemic had a lot of people looking inward to what makes them happy and rethinking about what they want to do with the rest of their career, whatever it may be, and even how they live their lives. It's going to be interesting. I was in the office earlier this week and went into the kitchen to get my tea like I always do, ran into somebody, one of our senior folks, like we always would run into each other, and chat up a conversation. Hadn't seen him in 15 months. And he said, I think I'm done getting up at 5 a.m. now, and just how we live our lives. It has, I think people are reprioritizing some things, and not that work isn't fulfilling or good, but how they work and the intensity with which they work, I think is going to shift. And how do we as a profession react to that and balance the client needs with the capacity issues we have with the talent? I mean, it's definitely a perfect storm in a way of some things coming out of this.
I think it's a real opportunity for firms, though, to think about their culture, their mission, their values, and how they're going to adjust to the expectations of our talent now that the work-life balance issues have come up so much into the forefront. It's a chance to just simply step back and reevaluate what firm leaders have been asking of their staff, and what are the options for reducing that 80-hour work week 12 months a year to something that's more manageable.
Don't you think it's going to, I think it's going to change finally how firms are looking at their, not only their business model, but how they are working with staff, right? It's almost a little bit too late today. I was at a after tax season party with about 70 different small firms in Minnesota. And somebody came up and said, my right-hand person, my top CPA gave notice today. And they tried to convince them, just take the summer off, take the whole summer. And they said, no, I'm not going to do it. So you think, it's like, it probably should have been doing something prior, right? We can't expect professionals, and especially young staff, to work 80-hour weeks anymore. It's going to change how we operate and how we work to be sustainable in the future. And I think it'll be an interesting see how the shifts happen, because I think already aren't we seeing some increasing compensation to attract people, to retain people, and then we're going to see this. I think we're going to see a shifting in number of hours of expectation of realization, all those things. So I'd be curious, what you guys are talking about at Lexi too.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually hired a national consultant actually to help look at and our levels of people across assurance, tax, and consulting, and making sure compensation we're in the marketplace where we should be. That focuses just on accounting firms, and with the benefits and what the people have. And as a firm as a whole, I think, I've said this before in different things, is that this pandemic actually kicked us into the future probably about 5 years, and all these things we've been talking about never quite got to, we had to. And we are relooking, and it's going to take us 2 or 3 years to accomplish this, but we're shifting our firm mindset of highest and best use of our skill sets at the individual level. So I think that we're going to start with partners because it's a tone at the top, but that's going to flow down once we figure it out. But it's so energizing when you talk about not everybody's good at everything. And, if you can create a path for individuals to see how they can become a partner and do what they enjoy doing. Like, not everybody enjoys the technical, not everybody enjoys the business development, but if you do, and you can focus your time and be well compensated for that, you're going to be better at it, right? I'm a firm believer of if you're doing something you enjoy, you're going to be good at it. So we're kind of making that shift, and I'm really excited about it. It's something that 3 years ago probably wouldn't have been on the table, but it's a one firm focused, highest and best use of our people. So it's very exciting.
Lexi, I think that's brilliant. And what I would add to that is over communicating right now to your staff about, we're in this together. We're gonna try some things. It may not work the first time, but let's be honest and open about it, and let's understand that this is all a brand new environment as we begin to come back into the office. And so, over communicate about the need to try things and pivot again and tweak and just having honest conversations about what's going to work.
If I put that tone at the top, Lexi, that you talked about, You think about the young staff looking at the top. You also have to be that role model. Besides, that tone includes being a role model, right? Because if the life you're leading isn't attractive to them, but if you're doing things with passion and things you're really totally interested in, I think you guys are on the right path. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's exciting.
So a couple of questions have popped in here. I'd like to get some insight from you all on these. The first one, are you seeing younger staff aspiring to own their own practices, or do they have different goals? What are you hearing from or seeing in terms of what young professionals are really looking for?
I'll go first, and you guys jump in, but I think that there are definitely younger professionals who are looking to start the firm that they want to work for and work on the niche that they're most passionate about, to what we were just talking about. So if the firm that they're with doesn't seem receptive to investing in a niche that they're passionate about, then I think with the growing technologies that's out there and this new environment, I think there's much more propensity to say, that's fine, I'll just go do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The pandemic and everything that everybody experienced over the last 16 months or so, the whole family life, the opportunities to work from home, and like Lisa just said, creating that firm that they want to be working at, which is what you're talking about, Lexi, right? Creating that firm people want to be at with passion on what they're doing.
Right.
That's what they've wanted. And so I think there's going to be this shift. I think you're going to see, I don't know if it's shift is the right word, but I think you are going to see a number of young professionals doing their own thing and creating what they want, being able to go home at 5 or 6 o'clock at night to be with their family, to do all the things that they want to be doing. I think we're already seeing some of that happen, for sure.
Another question kind of revolves around technology and what that might allow us to do. They're asking, does technology allow us to have staff work fewer hours because of AI audits? This seems to solve some of the problems we're finding with labor shortages and increased value add. Your thoughts on the role that technology can play in all this?
Carl, I'll let you go first since
you're going to get me started on this. So yes, technology plays a role, but the comment about does it, I guess, reduce the number of hours that people have to work? I think there's a whole number of factors that play into the workload and the pressures that firms have that they put on staff without meaning to put on staff. And technology is only going to take relieve some of that. You have to really look at your overall business model. You have to look at what your billing protocols are, what your process is. And, it might mean, especially some smaller firms, it might mean you need to really look at your clients and decide which ones you should be keeping and working with and which ones you shouldn't. You should be raising your fees, raising your prices, and you should be able to get to a point of compensating your staff at a higher rate to retain them. And also, when you make all these different shifts, you're going to be able to still be in business, making the money that you should be making and have been making, but in a new, different business model that incorporates leveraging technology. But it's not just technology, it's going to provide that relief. It's a number of factors, and we could spend a whole hour just talking about those things.
Mm-hmm. It was a philosophy that this gentleman that Gordon Crater, he's retired now, he's a former managing partner of a major firm. And he would say, I guess it was the founder of Plant Moran that adopted this, but it's a great philosophy of the protocol with your clients is you pay our bills, we agree to it, we know what the fees are, but you pay our bills and you treat our people good, and if you don't do those two things, we're not the right fit for you. Mm-hmm. And I just think how empowering to your people to have that philosophy, and people, and I think it creates an accountability on both sides, between the firm and the client, and your accountability with your people as well. So I loved that.
I went to by the way, I went to a session that can't remember the managing partner at the time, did a presentation just on their culture and that philosophy and that belief with a Plant Moran Alliance group. It was unbelievable. And they live it. They definitely live it. It's pretty cool.
That's important. We just had a blog come out, or Journal of Accountancy article come out this week about is it time to fire some clients? And I know that in the partner groups I've talked with, it can be really unnerving to think about letting go of revenue, but to hone in on what Lexi was talking about with highest and best use, by letting go of the clients that aren't serving the purpose of the firm and aren't treating your people well, you free up that time and that capacity to do more meaningful work for the clients that really appreciate it. So when I've talked to partners who have done that, they'll come back and say, and my revenue grew by X% because I let those weights on our productivity go.
Yeah, there was a gentleman, at least I don't know if you remember, and Carl, he was one of the PCPS committee members, and he was managing partner of a firm up in Massachusetts. I think it was about 9 or 10 partners in the firm. And he had come to the meeting saying how they had adopted this, exactly what you're saying. It was culling out, I can't remember if it was like 10 or 15%, but they called out that those clients that didn't meet what they felt would appreciate the services or, the accountability piece of it. And it didn't even take them a year to make up that revenue, because it was just happier clients, happier employees, able to make a difference with your clients, which is why we do what we do. That's what we enjoy doing. And it was a win-win, but it's a real tough thing to do that. I mean, I'd struggle on that a little bit too, but it's the right thing to do. So
yeah, it's hard to think about that client you've had forever, and then you go, oh, yeah, we don't really make any money, or they're kind of a pain, and
Yeah.
But once you get rid of them, you, especially the staff,
The
positivity.
staff appreciate it. Yeah, they do. I had one where we refused to rebid on it because it was the one that our staff did not enjoy working with the client, and they were just like, wow, that's really great, and also usually those clients are the ones that sometimes have. I think it helps firm risk as well, just from a business perspective, because usually those are ones that tend to have more. Where I always say that, there's a line, and you can go through the gray, but you can't cross the line, and so some may want to do that. So I think it helped. Anyway, it's a well-rounded philosophy to adopt.
Yeah, I'll just share one quick example too. When I was in practice before I came to AICPA, we had a client that really, when I made the comment just a second ago about you might not be making as much money on a client, there's also those clients you make a lot of money on. And we had a client that I just never looked forward to working with, year in and year out. And like, gosh, okay. I was going through, I think a lot of small firms have this issue. I'm not confrontational. I don't really want to let them go necessarily. I'm just going to raise their fees. Well, we kept raising their fees, and then we kept raising their fees. We were, and for a small firm, we were billing out $500, $600 an hour on that client every single time. And you go, how can I get rid of it? You know what? It was the best thing we ever did. Just said, you know what? We're not the right fit. We let them go finally. So there's a lot of intangible factors, I guess, in the sense of culture, staff, happiness, all those things play into it. And everybody was so happy. And of course, we replaced it right away too, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think kind of tied pretty tightly at the hip, this issue of talent is pipeline. Let's talk about the pipeline a little bit. Where do we stand on this right now? I mean, we hear all kinds of stats and numbers about the number of folks studying accounting, the number who are going to continue on and eventually take the exam and pass all 4 sections. Lisa, what are you hearing? What are you seeing in terms of that pipeline issue right now?
Well, we do know, obviously, that the pandemic is going to cause a dip in the number of people graduating because so many people just sat out the academic year, which I certainly understand. But there is a challenge in getting people interested in accounting and then graduating, taking the exam, and becoming certified. So, we're actively working on CPA Evolution, which I'm sure you guys have talked about in the past, to make the profession more, to really encompass technology as a component of what we do as CPAs. So we do believe that that'll make it more attractive to students in college, but we're also interested in getting the word out at a younger level. So we're getting the word out in high school classes about just the amazing career opportunities that becoming a CPA can provide.
I think that's oh, sorry, go ahead, Carl.
Well, no, I was just going to say, there's really, on one hand, there's no better time to be in this profession, to be a CPA. It is unbelievable. The demand is so great. The opportunities are fantastic. The opportunities to really work in industries or with clients in industries that you're passionate about, the direction that, Lexi, your firm's going in passion and looking how to redefine that to create that culture and that atmosphere where staff that's where they want to be. They're not going to go create the thing they want because you have it. But it's going to take a little while to make that shift. People really realize it.
Yeah, I agree. I think for the future of the profession, we absolutely has to happen. And I know Bill Froley, who's their current chair of the ICPA, he talks about, going into high schools, and Rebecca with MACPA is looking to get involved with that. And I think it's critical. I mean, when I think about myself, the reason when I was first exposed to accounting was Mrs. Wilson's administrative class, whatever it was in high school in 10th grade, and it was a bookkeeping class. And it all made sense in my head, just how I thought of it. And Kimberly Ellison Taylor talked about being in kindergarten. Somebody came in and talked about being a CPA, and she's like, that's what I'm going to do, right? And we have an ability to really impact, and it's just I think that there's ways that associations that we could partner up with some of the firms in the state of Maryland that they want to fill that pipeline and get them into the community, and let's create this new community, which is part of the mission we're talking about working together in the high schools, because we've got to feed the pipeline. And when you think about the future, I think that our profession is redefining itself. The PPP loan process is a perfect example of that. When all that came out, our clients turned to the CPA to help advise them and guide them, right? It had nothing to do with taxes. It had nothing to do with financial statements. It had everything to do with being a business advisor. And I think that's proof about how powerful our profession is. And it's just getting the word out there and getting people excited about it. And it's really a visibility, that's all, just getting it more visible.
Lisa, you mentioned, I'm sorry, Cara, I was following up on something that Lisa mentioned a couple of minutes ago, which was the CPA Evolution. And we have a question that came in from somebody about that, asking, are the upcoming changes to the exam going to make it easier to become a CPA? And the side note is they would hate to see the value of the license diluted just so that we can get more people into the pipeline. Your thoughts on the new exam and what that's going to look like?
I don't think any of these changes are going to make the exam easier. That's certainly not the goal. The goal isn't just to make it so that anybody can become a CPA. I feel very passionately about the value of the CPA and the knowledge that we have that Lexi was just talking about, and that is absolutely not the goal of these changes. The goal is simply to acknowledge that technology is a big component, and to shift the way the exam tests some of that knowledge, but the core knowledge is still going to have to be there to be a successful CPA candidate.
Yeah, you think about the amount of the tests, when we all took the test years ago, and what recent graduates have to take, the amount of knowledge that they have to be tested on is really unmanageable to create, a CPA today with the core knowledge. And I think the CPA Evolution is going to help us get to where that needs to be, that the core knowledge in the basics, including some technology components, is going to be there. And then with the evolution and adding on, some focus areas is going to make a big difference. And then we'll have, I think it'll make it very attractive.
Lexi, a few minutes ago, you mentioned how quickly things have accelerated as a result of the pandemic and all the changes that that has brought. I'm curious what each of you think about this. What are some areas that have changed the most for firm leaders over the last 18 months or so? I mean, how has running a firm changed completely as a result of what we've gone through? Tell me what you've seen about how organizations like these are operating today versus what they were, how they were doing things, you know, at the beginning of 2020.
I think there's significantly more collaboration across the profession because we don't know, right? I mean, I don't remember any point in my career where we didn't have a historical benchmark to go from. I mean, we've never in anybody's lifetime here been through a pandemic, you know, in the business community. And so how do you react to that? How do you respond to that with your employees? Having to make short-term decisions as opposed to long-term in the sense of, we don't know what the flexible workplace is going to look like. We don't know when we're a single office in Maryland, how are we going to deal with compensation across the United States, you know, individuals in different places. We just don't know. And we don't know how clients are going to be responding. So we have to make decisions quicker. We have to take our facts and just go with our gut sometimes and what we think is the right avenue. And like, I think, Carl, you were saying, like, if we get it wrong, we'll fix it. You know, right. It's all fixable. It really is. But we need to move forward. And it's created, it just forced a transition. I mean, you have people that felt like you can never work out of the office. That's just, you need to be physically present in the office or you're just not working, right? That's gone. I mean, it just went out overnight. And that was generations there. I grew up with that mindset. And so I think quite frankly, it's making you a better business person. You have to make decisions.
Lisa, what are you seeing here?
In my 30 plus years of my career, and that's when y'all go, what? How can she be that old? But in my 30 plus years, I've never heard as much of a focus as I'm hearing these days around mental health. And both within public accounting and business and industry. So I'm encouraged by the fact that firm leaders across all firm sizes are focused on the health and well-being of their staff at a level they've never been before. So, you know, you've had to worry about physical safety of your employees early in the pandemic, but now that we've been through this for so long and the stress, the worry, the isolation, those things have really become bigger issues within firms. So they're talking about how to help and how to respond. So that's one of the biggest changes I've seen.
Oh, and it's so important, especially in this kind of remote environment, that I think one of as great as it's been and as productive as people have been throughout this, I think one of the dangers of this is that, I mean, you literally live in your office now, which makes it really easy to just work all the time. And, you know, there was a lot of focus early on how great and how productive remote work was. And then over time, you started hearing whispers about burnout it's real and it's harsh and it's and we've got to do something about that as well. And so it's I think it's refreshing to, and to Lexi's point, we really are kind of building the bridge while we cross it, right? We're figuring out all of these issues kind of one step at a time. There is no blueprint for this kind of stuff. So it's really interesting to see how mindsets have shifted along with, you know, the knowledge of what we're doing and the impact that it's having.
Yeah, it's educating the leaders about the things to look for. To your point, Lisa, it's like looking for behavior changes, you know, and I mean, we don't have to be the ones to resolve it. I mean, we're you know, Aronson is a major firm, so it's a larger firm and we have resources and we use those resources with our human resources group because we're not trained in that, but we just need to look out for it. And we've had some individuals who are like, okay, behavior shifted, what's going on? And things that we wouldn't have been looking for usually, or have, keeping an eye out for. But it's things that have always existed, but now we're really paying more attention to it. And I think that it's just, at least it was a great point. Great point.
Let's talk a little bit about we mentioned technology earlier, but I'm hearing a lot of things in the trade press about new technologies and the impact that they're going to be having on firms and how they operate. What technologies are you guys seeing right now that you think is going to have the biggest impact in the short term for firm leaders? Carl?
Wow, that's a great question. I'll tell you, I think that we had Dean on with Bockkeeper. I think that the movement towards our AI and the integration of that within the services that firms are providing for small firms, I think the adoption of that is going to accelerate. And I think that's going to make a big impact with those firms.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what always impressed me with PCPS and the committee members over several years, they rotate, but just the resourcefulness of small firms, of finding the technologies to make it more efficient and to make it work. There's so much that's out there. It's just ferreting through it. So I would use a forum like MACPA, like AICPA, to engage with your peers, because there's so much out there. It's not possible to know all of them. And what works for people, what doesn't work, and why does it work well for them? What are they finding about it? I think that those are critical. I'm a huge fan and believer and supporter of technology, but I'll be honest, it is a struggle to keep up. It just, every time I'm like, oh my gosh, do we have to have another training on something new again? It can be overwhelming. And so there's a balance there. I remember one of our Prac City members was saying that they actually hired somebody for change management because they were like, you're doing too much at once. You gotta be deliberate and spread it out, because we are human beings. We do have to absorb this and be able to use it effectively and efficiently, because you don't want to do technology for the sake of technology. But I really encourage the people out there to connect with your profession. That's the best resource that you can have to keep up with technology and what's really working for people.
Lexi mentioned collaboration earlier in one of her points, and it's like, this profession, I joined the AICPA about 9 years ago, and I am blown away at the amount of sharing that people in this profession are willing to do. They are willing to say, I tried this and it was an epic failure. Please don't go down that path without these guardrails, or this has been a revolutionary change within my practice, or, here's some stumbling blocks I made, but we made it. So just, again, to Lexi's point, leveraging your peers as you're trying to figure out how to implement technology and what the best approach is, it's invaluable.
Yeah, and as soon as we can start going to live events, go to the events, go to the town hall meetings, go to the CPA summits, all the events that are there, the ones that make sense for you, because the side conversations is where you learn all of that as well. And it's just invaluable. And AICPA, there's definitely collaboration. I think that within state societies, there was a little bit of hesitancy because it's the firm down the street that you're talking to. But the reality is that I've seen that barrier drop. It certainly within Maryland, and people are collaborating. Firms are collaborating. We've had the highest attendance at our managing partner meetings that we have, because people are open to sharing now and helping each other. And that, they say when the water rises, all ships rise, right? That's really what's happening.
The collaboration is
I
happening.
long for the day. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carl.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I long for the day when AI is as integral to what we do every day as Excel is. And, I just remember way back in the day when Excel was a novelty. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how AI and RPA are right now, but it's going to happen. And I think it's going to happen quickly, that they are just part of our everyday. So that'll help.
Yeah, I'm not sure all the opportunities that Maryland Society provides for small firms, but small firm networking, the value of that. Some of our, if we're looking for best practices on technology, some of our small firm networking groups at AICPA oftentimes will have a session during their semi-annual meetings where it's strictly sharing what are you doing with technology this year? What's the new thing that you brought in? Why does it work? And they talk about best practices all the time. And like you said, Lexi and Lisa, it's a great opportunity to find out what really works. And if you think about a small firm, why they don't have the resources always that the larger firm does, they do have the ability to pivot quicker and implement, right? And find out whether or not it really works. So.
And Samantha Bowling, who's a former chair of MACPA, she is a partner with a smaller firm in Southern Maryland. And she is very much like, that is no excuse if you're a small firm. She says, I heard Barry Melanson speak once about these changing trends and it terrified me. And she started Googling and going online and finding all these things to the point where she became acknowledged nationwide as with I think she won the AICPA Technology Innovation. I don't know the exact title of it, and she's the small firm.
Just a very small
I think
firm.
that's proof. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It used to be that it was just the biggest organizations with the deepest pockets who could play around with this stuff, and that's just not the case anymore. There's affordable, easy to use solutions that everybody can take advantage of, and yeah, you're absolutely right. We're getting short, but I wanted to we've talked about two of our three what we call hard trends, right? The future facts, the things that we know are going to happen. We've talked about technology. We've talked about demographics to a certain extent. The third one is legislation and regulation, which is a real big topic there. But I'm just curious for some brief thoughts from each of you. What are you seeing? What's worth paying attention to? What do firm leaders need to be watching for over the next few months or years in terms of what's coming down the pike from lawmakers and regulators? What's got your eye?
Sales tax on services. Just some of the cross, those terms of art that are completely escaping my head right now. The most CPA mobility, and I think just overall liability is a little, things we need to be paying attention to.
And I'll add to that, there are movements across the country to challenge occupational licensing guidelines. So sometimes CPAs can get lumped into an anti-regulatory mindset. And so our advocacy team is always keeping an eye on those kinds of efforts that may be well-intended, but could have some inadvertent consequences around protecting the profession, but also the public interest.
I would just add on, especially for the smaller firms, I think they should be watching where the authority for the IRS to regulate tax preparers goes. That's a big issue for small firms.
Of course, we need him to answer the phone, Carl, first, right?
Well, it's funny, Lexi, because I was thinking about IRS services, right? But anyway, that's very true, Lexi.
They need funding. They need funding to do their job. It's just, everything's just kicked down the road from a filing perspective. It's created such havoc that it's going to take so long to unwind this without resources and to get back to, just the timeliness of things. It's a challenge. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, Lexi, Carl, Lisa, thank you for being here. Thanks for your insights. This has been a great conversation. We could probably do this all day long, and it would be a great conversation. But we are coming near the end of our time together. So once again, just thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. Very well appreciated. A couple of final, let me see if I can share my screen here. Just want to wrap up here with a couple of notes for our members. Some upcoming things to be on the lookout for. Leadership Academy, our Leadership Academy coming up in August. If you've got young professionals that you think might be good to get on that leadership track, please send them along. One of our better received programs every year is Leadership Academy. Well worth your time. Coming up August 18th to the 20th. Our next town hall meeting is going to be August 20th. Make a note of that on your calendar. An hour of CPE, and the focus in August is going to be emerging leaders. As I understand it, we're going to have a panel of young professionals and Leadership Academy graduates with us to talk a little bit about their experiences. So be sure to join us for that. As I mentioned earlier, the CPA Summit coming up in October, October 22nd, as a matter of fact. 4.5 hours of CPE, and we are working on the agenda as we speak. That will be coming up. So keep an eye out for details as they emerge. I can tell you that we're very excited that our keynote speaker for the summit this year is going to be Tom Peters, leadership expert and best-selling author. So you won't want to miss that. That will be a fun event. Be sure to get your donations in for the Macpa Foundation. This is, again, our commitment to the future of the profession. We spent some time talking about the pipeline today. We are, in our foundation, is working very diligently to help keep that pipeline packed with promising young professionals. So you'll find more details about the foundation on our website. Women to Watch is coming up. And our deadline, we've actually extended the deadline as I understand it. So be sure to get your nominations in for our Women to Watch Awards. The awards will be presented on September 24th at the hotel at Arundel Preserve. So keep an eye out for details on that as they come in, but we're looking for nominations of some of our best and brightest women in Maryland. And as always, we spend a lot of time talking about all of these issues on our podcast, our weekly podcast, Future Proof, which is, as they say, available wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. You can subscribe there and continue the conversation with me and other thought leaders throughout the profession. And with that, I think we're right at time. So again, Lexi, Carl, Lisa, thank you for being here. Thanks to Deneen and Bockkeeper for their sponsorship and their partnership today. And thanks to all of you for being here. It's been a great hour. Hope you got something out of it. And I hope you have an enjoyable Friday and a great weekend. Thank you all for being here, and we'll talk soon. Take care.